If you are looking for an open source customer data platform, look no further. TRACARDI is all you need. TRACARDI is an open source platform that collects data. It's free to use and you can integrate it with other systems. Today I'm going to present you how to use this system. Okay, let's get started.
This is the way you will see TRACARDI when you run it for the first time. On the left side you will see the menu. All the elements in the menu are organized in a way that you can see how the data flow goes. It comes from traffic. So when you click on the traffic, you have sources, then you have user consents, data validation, data and data processing. This is the workflow of the data in the TRACARDI. If you want to open a source that will collect the data, you have to click New Event Source, select an event source type. Let's give it a name, My Web Page. You have to enable this source, save, and we are ready to go. When you click on the source, you can see that there is an ID that you will have to include in your JavaScript that is placed on your web page. Actually, you have the JavaScript here, you can copy it. This part goes into the head of the HTML, and this one goes to every page where you will be tracking some events. You can also simulate the tracking script clicking here, and when you select the event source, you can type your properties and you can also type your event type. This event type will be sent to TRACARDI. You will see the request and the response. This is the request. It's sent to the TRACARDI endpoint, actually to the API, and this is the response from the server. This tab consists of consent types. So for example, if we are gathering data for marketing reasons, we can define a marketing consent, give it a default consent value, and we can save it. Later on, we can display this information on the web page and ask if a customer wants to consent to this. If you would like to use it, then we can check if the user granted us a consent and later on process the data. Here we have a validation schema. Validation schema is a way to validate data. I will not present it in detail. Right here you just name it, your schema, and provide a JSON schema validation that says how the data is structured. Now we have data. I've already tested the system and we have two events. So 2-page events that I've sent previously. Here we have events, profiles. One profile was created. We have like 2 events from one profile and 1 session. If you go back to tests, you can see that we type here a session ID and a profile ID. This is information that is kept on the client side and we provide it every time we track an event. And the most interesting part is processing. When we have a data that comes to the system, it is processed real time in the system. Right now we see that this event was only collected, it was not processed. You can see the details of this event. You can see what data was sent, the context, actually there was none, the event itself, and we can also debug events, and I will show it later. You have to remember that every time you send an event and the profile is not in the system, this is actually an anonymous profile, then the data for the profile is created, it's empty, and with every next event you can update this profile, and I will show you how to do it. Okay, let's go to processing. We have 3 tabs. One is workflow, the second one is routing rules, and the third one is segments. Workflows is the part that is responsible for processing data. So right now let's create a new workflow and collects event properties. With every event we send just a simple little parts of data and it's called properties. Here we go, we have a workflow. You can go and edit the workflow, and this is the main part of the system where we process every event that comes into the system. So let's filter our actions to find a start node. This is where the processing begins. You can double click on this node and you can see that we can collect debug information with this node. It means that later on we can see what happened when the data was processed. We can also limit the workflow to work only on certain events, so I will do it that it will work only on page view. Let's find a merge action. With this action we can merge any event properties into profile. Double click on it and you can see that we can merge the data that comes with the event into a public trace inside the profile. Now we can end the workflow, and that's it. I would like to debug this workflow because I'm not quite sure if it works correctly. So let's find a node called debug, connect it, and also double click on it to configure it. You can see that this node will load from the database any page view event, will inject it into the workflow, and this data will be processed. We click on debug, and here we go. This is how the workflow worked. We can click on each node, see the input and output data. So you can see this one loads an event data and outputs it on a port event. See here, port event. And you can see an internal state of the workflow, that is the profile data that was created, event, and a session. This is our profile. Inside profile we have traits. We wanted to copy the data from the properties named John to the profile set traits public. So let's go and see if it worked. It was actually on this node. Let's debug the profile, and you can see the data was copied. The data was copied from the event into a traits public. Actually, this is it. It automatically merged the data from the event to the profile. We can deploy this workflow, and now this workflow is available outside, so the new events can be processed. But we have to do one thing: create a routing rule. What's a routing rule? A routing rule is a rule that tells that if there is any event called page view that comes from the source my web page, I want this workflow to be triggered. Let's name it simple rule number 1, and let's save it. Okay, what we have here, we have a rule that if anybody visits my web page and there is a web page event on that page, it will be directed through the rule number 1 to collect event properties. So this workflow. Let's see if it works. Maybe we can, for the first time, we can check the profile. This is my profile. You can see that public traits are empty, and I want it to be filled with some data. Name John, surname Doe. Remember that actually this part will be embedded into your page via the JavaScript I was presenting earlier. Okay, you can see the response returned the profile, and the profile has traits public, surname, and a name. We can go to data and check this out. Yes, here we go. Traits, public name Joe, and what can we see here? You can see that this event was processed. So we can even go to the flow logs and see that each node started correctly and ended without errors. Of course, inside the processing we have a lot of more features. We can also place multiple start nodes on the workflow canvas, and you can also select different event types, so you can connect one workflow to different event types. Now I will try to enrich our profile with some data from external resources. I will use for this Mongo. I have Mongo installed on my computer, and I will use this Mongo connector. And here is the configuration. I need a Mongo resource. This is the place where we type our credentials to Mongo, and we can see that there is none. We can click here and connect a Mongo connection. I select MongoDB, give a name to this resource, local Mongo instance, enable this resource, and here we type our credentials. Username is root and password is root, but notice we have two tabs here. One is for testing purposes, so when I run debugging or any testing, it will connect to this instance of Mongo, but when I run it on production, it will create to this instance, so this one should be different. Okay, right now I've created the resource, can select this. Now we need a database name. I can check my local instance if there is really a local database. I have a Mongo Compass, it's a client for MongoDB. Yes, I have a local database, and it has a collection called startup logs. I will try to retrieve this data. Actually, it's not a user data, but Obviously, you can have like a user data in a MongoDB, and I will be retrieving all the documents. Okay, let's debug it. We have an error. Database names cannot contain the character space. I probably have a space here, yes. You can always click here and see if the JSON that describes the connection is correct. We don't have space here. Let's run it again. It's okay right now, and we can see if we retrieved any data. Yes, we have, and we can use this data to enrich the profile. Actually, this data is meaningless, but you could have like a data that has some meaning, and then we can use for this one of those actions like set a trade, which will copy an information from payload to the profile. My target is profile trades, public, okay, give it a different name, Mongo. It will set it to payload and result 0. Okay, let's double check it again. You can see that profile will have a private Mongo trade set to payload result 0. Let's run it. Click on set trade, and here we go. Trades private Mongo, and this is our data. Once again, it's meaningless, but you see how it works. And we have like many of those connectors. You can connect to different databases. You can send data to other systems like MailChimp. You can send Discord pushes. You can send data to marketing automations like Mautic. You can fetch data from Airtable or fetch the analytics data to InfluxDB. You can enrich person contact information based on email from full contact. You can fetch data from weather services. You can fetch HTML, parse it, and then get some data from the page. You can connect to MySQL, PostgreSQL, to Elasticsearch. You can publish to some queues. It's a lot, and you can also send it to Zapier, and Zapier has like a trillion of integrations, so you can process it the way you want. So this is how TRACARDI can collect data inside profile and can orchestrate, send the data to other systems or retrieve the data from other systems to enrich the profile.
If you're interested in customer experience and tools that can help you to deal with it, please subscribe to my channel.